Hello, starting early. What I said, I guess. Well, I posted it in two different places this time. Maybe I should do Twitter as well, but well, I'm not really trying to be everywhere. Um, anyway, but good evening, Booser. Booser. If you can put up a way to pronounce that, I appreciate it. I try to remember to do it. Maybe I got it okay. um, well, I mean, there's so much to. I'm just tuning in basically for hi Kathy Southwestern. Um, if there's any questions or anything, I mean, I have all kinds of things I could talk about. I don't lack yapping. But Bruce Gore, hello. Boer, you got it. um, but I guess there's I just want to address the Lil Uzi Vert subject a little bit. For those that don't know about it, here's a link. Anyway, but in summary, for anybody that doesn't know about it, it's Lil Uzi Vert is a rapper, and he over a year ago uh, used the picture of Doe's vehicle as his Instagram identity. I guess, he's got a lot of fans. Probably I don't know how many, but he had 100 million, no, 1 million, I guess, hits on his Instagram or something. I don't know. Maybe I got that wrong, but anyway, so I guess he's big in some circles. Anyway, so he took some artwork from the Heaven's Gate website, and he used it, and he put his own words in there. And actually, since I'm talking about this, I should actually be able to show something here. Yeah, that's one thing to show, of course, which I haven't edited that completely, but uh, the other thing is okay, Kathy, I see what you're saying there. I have to catch up on last few streams before asking any more questions. I appreciate that, because who knows whether I actually said something that answered a question. But if you want to ask it now, it doesn't matter. I can always repeat it. So anyway, whatever you like on that score. Hello, Bruce Gore the third, and let's see. I was going to put this other thing, a couple images on the screen, but I realized I didn't put them in the right place yet. So let me just do that quickly. Where are those images? I guess it's not going to be quickly. Well, maybe it's over here. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I saved them someplace that's not the usual place. So I guess I'm not going to be able to put what I wanted to put on the screen. But let me see if I have it in another place. Um, oh, I know what I did with it. Okay, I just remembered. Let's see. There it is. A little early bird. I organized. Um, I think he changed it. Not that that's that important. I'm not trying to make a documentary here. Um, he changed the words so that it looked like he was saying that him and his father were Doe and the father that came, and he was putting himself in that position. And I'm sorry, I'm not tuning into where I put this image when I made it. But maybe it's still in the. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Okay. Um, I'm sorry, I'm so boring right now. I should have got this together before, but I wasn't thinking I was going to do this. Media, where are you? Oh, this isn't working. I'm sorry. I'm just going to skip this whole thing. I'll just tell. Already told you that he tried to insert words in the Heaven's Gate logo, and then Mark, who's the web with Sarah, the webmasters of the Heaven's Gate website, um, threatened to sue him for using that artwork, and and so a lot of time passed after that, and um, then he finally released. Just recently, he released one cut from the album that was related to that artwork on the cover, and he changed the wording again, I think, a little bit, and to say that him and somebody else, another name of somebody, were the UFO too, and I'll try to post this somewhere. Actually, it's on my Facebook page. If you go to Sawyer Heaven's Gate Facebook page and scroll through the posts, you'll see the story about this. So you'll see all the images there. So at the time when he did that, I sent him a message that I didn't I didn't find fault with him for using that artwork. Okay, although I don't disagree with Mark trying to put some regulation on that. I think to preserve exactly what it is, people will end up seeing different versions, and it'll be misrepresented totally, because of some of the words that were used. And I know it might be just a silly thing for little Uzi Vert, but or just his imagination or whatever, his artwork, his art form. So it's just fun. But if T and Do weren't who they were, then it wouldn't matter at all, in my opinion. Although it misrepresents somebody, but I guess it depends on whether it's a serious subject or not. And T and Do's material is serious, and but it's light also. It's and it's what the heck was that? I don't know what that was. Oh, probably something from let's see here. Well, the least I can do is I pretty much summarized it. So, but anyway, I offered at the time a year ago or so. I offered, I sent them an Instagram explaining my relationship to Heaven's Gate, and I said I would jam with him. I was thinking, if he's got 1 million followers, I don't mind, having Heaven's Gate exposed to 1 million people that didn't see it before. Because I think that's the intention of T and Do, to have the reality of who they are and spread throughout the world. Yeah, well, primarily in well, I'm not going to talk about primarily, although I could, but I'll see if there's anybody who asks me about it. All right, so, sorry. Let me go back to my other screen since I'm not going there. And actually, I want to go back to this one, but I want to take that down. And you all want to see Space Force Blumenthal again? Maybe not. I'll go to the chat room and see what you all have on your minds. Well, at least put the picture of Mr. Blumenthal in the Space Force proposal, where he said that there were people out in outer space. That's what he said to me, and I feel like it was pretty blatant. referring to them as they and in the space domain, and it wouldn't apply to the Chinese very well. Kate's Biz, hello. Jeff, greetings. Yeah, I was just seeing the peace marches that happened in maybe like 40 cities in the United States, and I don't know if any happened in Europe. In LA, total thousands of people. So it's it will grow because people don't want to go fight wars anymore. I mean, they've been doing it all along. See, that's the thing. It's been happening for 30 years or so. The United States has been bombing in Iraq. Clinton started it. So is anything on anybody's mind that oh yeah, I got a few other things here. Let's see here. The real story. No BS. Behind the U.S. attack on Iran. You know what? Maybe I'll play this. Yeah, I can do that. Okay, let's see here. What should we play? This? This one? No, this one. None of these. Well, I'm really striking out tonight. I probably should have kept to myself. Oh, I got this one again. Okay. Well, it's just something that I recognized. I just talk it. Can't believe I'm going to do this again. I'm going to be apologizing to you all again. There was an RT talk that is what I wanted to go to. RT America, which is Russia Today. So that people can call me now a Russian asset because I'm playing. It says right on the website that this is funded by Russia. Where the United States media don't tell you that, but it's the same thing. They're funded by the military-industrial complex and everything else. Raytheon and Boeing and the whole war business. Let's see.
What's it like to be impressive? What's it like on the golf course? 3 in the morning. Can't be a good call. I'm interested always in. Yeah, well, I tell you, a lot of my friends are quite disappointed.
Darn. I'm striking out again, folks. Oh, maybe this is it. Yeah, this is it. Okay, good. I found something. Now I just got to turn it on.
And hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. Tonight, it seems the entire world is on edge as the United States has essentially taken out an Iranian official. As we all collectively hold our breaths, it seems the question to be asked is now, what is next?
Oh, I should turn off my microphone.
As we begin this special report, what I want to do is take you around and introduce you to some of the folks who we are going to be hearing from today. Ron Paul, former U.S. Congressman, is going to be joining us via satellite. We also have Scott Ritter, weapons inspector, very much known for his expertise in this particular region, who's going to be joining us as well. You see on the screen there as well from Tehran live is Mohammed Marandi, the University of Tehran professor, who's going to give us his perspective. And here on the set, we have with us Christy I, our Boom Boss host, to tell us what's going on with the markets as a result of this. Michelle Greenstein, who is taking us through what the global reactions are from all over the world. And then Max Blumenthal, the editor of The Gray Zone, is joining us here as well. And Jim Jatras, who is
I don't know if you all want to sit through this. It's too long, and I mean, I should have cut it back, but I don't have the time and to do that quickly, so I shouldn't be messing with this stuff. But when I can play a little short, like I made out of that Richard Blumenthal video, then I guess I'll do that. But otherwise, I'm going to go to my. I got a question from the. All right, let me see if there's anything going on in the chat room. Play a tape or your flute or harmonica. Yeah, well, I could do that. No, that's a waste of time. I mean, there's all kinds. I don't know. I just didn't have really much of a plan, I guess. Um, but I guess the one thing that stood out today is that I learned about this, the prospect of war with Iran, was that, which was on that broadcast, some of it that I was just started to play. Oh, what am I doing here? I got this thing on the screen. Was that Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, apparently was, well, not apparently, I watched the videotape of him saying 2 hours, that was taken 2 hours, the report was that it was taken 2 hours before Trump's people assassinated the general, Soleimani. Did I say that correctly? But and then Nancy Pelosi disregarded the amendment that that Tulsi Gabbard ended up introducing to the House vote on Trump's defense Department of Defense Appropriations Act, or Appropriations Act, I think it was. In other words, the money for the Defense Department, which was increasing by a whole bunch to the DoD part of it, and well, because Tulsi submitted that amendment that said that Trump couldn't actually do anything militaristically in Iran. So specifically said that about Iran. And so now Nancy Pelosi is trying to drum up support to say that Trump needs to be withdrawn, restrained from being able to do anything in Iran. So it's like, was that accidental? Was she just stupid, or did she have a brain fart or something? A brain poofus would be the terminology that Doe gave us to use. Or is it part of the plan to, let this happen so that they can make more money, so that they can build their underground cities and try to get off the planet and find that element that they're looking for and anything else that they can take advantage of in case the planet goes south, because they know from the asteroid strikes, that not strikes, but the ones that got closer and closer, and then when that Kablinks meteor hit, got very close and did some damage, and they were taking those. That's been happening since the 90s. These asteroids getting closer and closer within the moon's orbit, even a number of them. I don't know if you all remember the reporting on that, but they take that seriously, and they should, of course. Because that's the next level, shooting, like something over the bow of the ship America, and the world, actually, not just America, but America primarily because they're the biggest head of the beast, of the 7 heads and 10 horn beast. And so bestial humans. So it could go a number of ways, and actually, then also I found out that the General Soleimani, I'm sure I'm butchering that. I'm sorry, but was at the Baghdad airport, international airport, with a Saudi Arabian representative, a prince, I think, one of the princes, to agree on a peace deal that was already worked out. So it was like a ceremonial that Iraq was being the host of a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Well, I mean, the reporting is that Iran's behind what's happening in Yemen, okay? And so that's like a proxy war with Iran and Saudi Arabia. So they're working out this deal. So one person that comes from an Israeli news service, that's American Israeli. I don't know if he's actually, but he is a citizen of the United States, I believe. Maybe he's got dual citizenship. I don't know if that happens with Israel. But he thought that Netanyahu was the one that stimulated Trump doing that now. And this is an Israeli guy, saying this. I think he's an Israeli that became Christian though, and so he's a pretty odd duck. But I've watched his reporting for a number of years. Well, maybe a couple of years, but it's always interesting. But because it's a different view, so it's nice to have different views. Because of the way that the United States media is so state run, by the two-headed state of the Democrats and the Republicans, as the face to the public, but it's really the same elites, the 1% that Bernie Sanders talks about, and brought to the fore of the discussion. That's who's running the show. And sure, that's the Illuminati, that's all that. It's the families, because there's a lot of relationships there and bloodlines. There always seems to be. I haven't seen the bloodlines for Trump, but Obama had bloodlines that went back to some European king. Or maybe it was a Southern European king, I guess. I don't know, but I guess that, had relations with somebody from another country, whatever. I don't know the details of it, but David Icke did a pretty good work on that. I like some of the things that David Icke does, and pointing out that the heads of state were all being used by the reptilians. That's what Tiendo taught, that the space aliens were using the people that had the most influence in the world over others. And anyway, so the things with the protests and the peace marches, what's positive about it is not that they're going to change anything. I don't even think most of the powers that be really care about what anybody's saying, because they're powerful enough that they just ignore it or call it a conspiracy theory, or they can put any spin on it they want, and they can get the people in all the mainstream media stations to toe the line, and occasionally something slips, and we get more than they bargained for, but then they do damage control, and so the propaganda machine continues. And the Democratic biggest propaganda machine right now is that humans can do anything to change the course of the climate warming trend. And that humans are responsible for it. Those two ideas. Now, I don't blame them for trying to do things, and they are coming up with different techniques for the creation of converting CO2 into something else, into an energy form that could be used in a car. I've seen inventions like that. I've heard about them. I've read about them. Anyway, but that's and then a carbon tax is what the IMF wanted, and I say take it from the defense budget. So the protests aren't going to change much, I don't think. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, and they may do things differently because of public outcry. If it gets big enough, I mean. But otherwise, I think they're just going to, what they do is to other demonstrations, they put provocateurs among the people. And so then there's violence, and then they have a reason to crack down on people. And you do the tear gas and everything to disperse people. And so far in these demonstrations, according to where I got the reports from that showed a bunch of different cities, a little video from each of these, like 10 different cities I saw, there was no indication that the police were doing anything about it. They were just parked on the side of the street while the people were walking through. But it wasn't a long progression of people, although they might have stayed put at one point. And so I'm sure they don't want to make a, if they have violence, then they're going to have to tend to report it, because they don't have that much control over all the reporters, and they don't want to be seen as not reporting on real events that happen. In terms of where people get hurt or there's damage or things like that. But I think but the benefit of it is that individuals are showing what they're made out of, because not having wars is the next level away to treat one another. Like Jesus even said that you need to be peaceful between you. You have peace between you. You're kind. You're gentle. You're tolerant of others. But he wanted you to have fire in your mind for overcoming the human kingdom. So that's where having conflict becomes a positive, because it faces us more with life and death, and so we're not so inclined to sit at home and watch the news, because now it's happening directly in a big way. That it's like giving smelling salts. That's the effect that it has. Not that Tiendo are making Trump do what he's doing, and his people are doing what they're doing. They don't have to. They just they can step back a little more and let it happen faster, because they can keep a handle on how much negativity dominates us, so that we're not totally overwhelmed all at once. The next level is preparing us for it to get worse, and trying to help us put our hopes in them, to help us with recognizing the truth about the things that are going to be being said, because they're getting to the point to where they can manufacture somebody saying something else pretty close to that. Maybe they perfected it totally, so that they can even change the mouth movements. I don't know, but so we've still got time for that, and we can help other people adjust to all this, because a lot of people are going to be freaking out the more and more they see the handwriting on the wall, and get afraid that they're not going to have the life they thought they wanted to have because things are changing fast. The earthquakes continue to have up their scale of how many are going off along the whole ring of fire. Continue. I mean, this is like a week now. That before that, it wasn't that often at all. I mean, it was there were earthquakes every day, yes, because they have a lot of measurements. Can go down to zero, the seismographs. But I've been watching these broadcasts from Dutch Since is his name, Sinse, Dutch Sinse, one word, and learn a lot from his broadcasts. They're excellent. But so I know it's upsetting to think, like the fires in Australia, there's anything like, well, with the war, the war of the fires, they're all devastating, traumatic events. And I know it makes me look like I'm, a blind follower, but I believe that everybody can, if they reach for the highest source they can reach for help. I have, I have, I believe they will get help in some shape or form, because that's what the next level wants to see from this. Because the vehicles are all going to perish, and it's being accelerated during this time. And no, it's not as much as it was during World War I and II, and maybe it never will get to that place before the next level decides to bring it to a close by their so-called natural events. So it's not, it's not like. So how can we be happy, right? At any point anymore? Well, it's actually we get happy by knowing that there's a future, and although heaven can be on earth if the next level members are actually here physically. So if the planet is used like Doe said, he thought might happen as a base, then next level members will be among the people to some degree. I don't know, how. I don't know if they, are so close to us that they're, we could shake their hand, members, or if we just see their spacecrafts coming and going, and or see the individuals in the spacecraft, doing things, and then getting back in the spacecraft and leaving. I don't know what it would look like. Tindo didn't describe that kind of detail. They just said that the next level. One of the things they do with planets is use them to make them into a heavenly body. Was the first words that I heard them use to describe it. And that's when like the next level could be here. Now they can't be here now because the humans would either try to capture them or shoot them or uh, um, and even if the people wouldn't do that, the vibration is here to do that, and they hate that vibration. It's like T said that she felt like being here was like being in a snake pit. So because her standards had increased so much that even the fact that a snake pit is probably got more bacteria in it than a human living in a house has to deal with. I mean, as an example of, one of the reasons why we might not like to be in a snake pit or where and people are trying to bite you, if you get out of line. And, that's a vibration that is very much in the human kingdom, whether it's somebody's employer or or the government official or the police or a teacher in a school or a parent or another caregiver or someone in the family. Throughout the human kingdom that happens. But it doesn't happen in the next level. And so they see us as, being like, like when you see puppies fighting, kind of, playfully fighting. I mean, no, it's actually when you see them growling at each other. I guess that's more the example that fits how they see humans, I think. I mean, T and Do gave two examples of how the next level members see humans, and that is as the way that humans see dogs was one, and the way that like people that train horses see horses. Those are two examples that I know about. And in both those cases, the canines or the horses, when they allow themselves to accept the training, that they don't know it's training at first. I guess they think they're just being captured and forced to do something. Forced to have somebody ride on their back. And so they buck it for a while, and some of them buck it more than others, and some of them will never allow that person to be on their back. And but the ones that do allow it end up learning how great it was to have allowed that to happen, and they end up becoming like a part of the family in a good ranch, where they're not just raising horses for like as if each horse was like a racehorse, that they're taken care of really well, and they respond to that. And I've some experience with horses to see how they love to be loved, and so humans are like that, except we just have more technology and we have the choice not to behave like animals. And so because we have that choice and the ability to not behave like animals, the next level, helps us grow. And part of that growth is a form of, maybe taking a switch and smacking the horse on the back of the butt a little bit. It's not going to kill the horse. It's not going to damage them psychologically, I don't think. So that they can get up and go faster. And so that's what we're experiencing now. The next level is like giving us all, the whole society, the whole world in different ways. Um, you know, you need to grow a little faster. You need to wake up a little more, see a little more of reality, and start to understand where that reality comes from, and see if you recognize our older members as Do and T. And that recognition is a gradual. It can be a gradual thing, of being interested in the information, thinking some of it makes sense. That's how it kind of starts. Something that is said about it, so you think, oh wow, and people all the time, are only heard the media's reports. Then when they hear somebody speaking in, to another point of view, that can help them. So the more any of us can do that, the better it's going to help other people wake up a little more. And do that while not judging that we're any further along than them just because we are a little more awake. But because they might be awake in terms of how much of their overcoming they have already accomplished in a way that we're not. Because lessons come to humans in the world the same as they come to, as they came to, Tiendo said that the classroom was an accelerated lesson period. That was the difference. With humans, there's breaks in between major lessons. Usually, some people might get hit with very difficult lessons all, one after another, and never can get a breather. But if they put their projection of asking for help to the next level, they'll get help, because Tiendo taught that we were being exposed to adversarial discarnates, or the Luciferian space alien associates, the ones that sided with the one that was called Lucifer, and whatever name he had at the time. I'm not saying his name didn't change, but because it doesn't mean Lucifer is just the English word we have for it, but I think it's he who brings light or something, or light bearer. I think light bearer is the meaning of his name. So I should say, light bearer from now on, because Lucifer did grow to be a good soul at one point, and or he never would have received a task to do working in the next level. And T said that in the Black Hawk tapes that the next level still loves Lucifer, and he's a kind person. He's not, he's not like he's gentle and all, in his behaviors, and he's very, he knows a lot of things about how the garden grows, Tiendo said. But he's using it to go against his older members, and the older members don't like that, but it's his free will to do that. And they've tried to help him many times, actually, snap out of that, because there's no benefit, there's no positivity in it. Trying to convince people that nothing exists, there's no positivity in that. Or trying to convince them that the space aliens that are stealing people away and taking their eggs and sperm, abducting people, are the good space aliens, and that the ones coming from deep outer space are the bad space aliens. It's like that's not coming from that's part of his mind. And he believes that. I believe that he believes that. Because he's lost, because mind from the next level withdraws from us when we go back into having more human behaviors and ways, and that includes thinking and what we pursue, and the compromises that we make that allow us to continue to do human things. That's what happens when some of the mind from the next level withdraws from the vehicle. That's what happens to dropouts like myself. Except, I'm not saying it didn't happen repeatedly, because I don't know, if it continues to happen. But through Carlin, I learned that after I left, Doe said that they removed some of my recognition of the next level so that I could rise to the occasion of asking for help and then taking the help, and then conquering the things that I wasn't conquering before that. So they can do that, I believe, to the whole planet. Remove some of the recognition, and that's it actually translates to being a frequency that's very uplifting. It's like a magnet that's drawing people's minds to the positive side of the polarity, so that even if they were having thoughts of doing something terrible to somebody, like shooting them in a mass shooting, they weren't willing to act on them because the next level was holding back their negativity that was trying to take over everybody, from the Luciferian space alien fallen angel souls. But not only them, but from the discarnates that died, and they died in wars or angry or because when somebody kills somebody else, I don't doubt that the individual that was killed, if they saw him do it, or maybe they don't even have to see him do it. I don't know how that works exactly, like with bombs and things like that, but can end up haunting people that are in that battlefield and attaching to them. Tiendo did teach that that when we went out, like out in the world driving around, that we would be careful to not pick up hitchhikers, discarnate hitchhikers. I mean, we didn't pick up any hitchhikers. We didn't have procedure for that. Not that I remember many, but because we always lived in urban areas when we weren't living in very rural areas. In either case, we weren't on the roads all the time. So I didn't, see that many people on a daily basis, unless I went to my job, which I did have at country club and different places, cooking, and then programming computers. Anyway, I'll go back to the chat room. Jet Boss 737 says, does he ever look at the chat, or does he just ramble on and on and on and on about this silly doctrine of the next level? Yeah, I ramble on and on and on. I know I do that. But it's not a silly doctrine. It's just, it's up to you to decide whether you want to actually take a look at it seriously. And I'm not trying to convince you that it's not a silly doctrine. I wish I could, because I know that it would benefit you a lot. But that's part of the teachings from Tiendo, is that we have to want it. And that's why Jesus said, knock and the door shall be open to you, seek and you shall find, ask and you shall receive, shall be given. And that's like when Jesus also talked about how you need to observe the signs when he comes back, because it's not going to be obvious. Like he said, it was going to be like a thief in the night. So it's going to come at a surprise time, but also in a way that you don't expect. That's the way Jesus talked about it. And this is the way that you didn't expect, I think, Jet Boss 737. And a lot of people didn't expect it to happen by even two people coming again in physical bodies. They thought it was going to be just, like it was depicted in Revelation chapter 19, with Jesus in a spacecraft. And that's what that does depict. But see, then they don't know how the two witnesses fit into this. And that was either kept from people by the next level because they wanted it to be something that was a challenge to understand, or the lower forces were just trying to keep people from not hearing it, so that they're putting their hands over your ears, like the discarnates, or that, especially like all the discarnates that died as Christians, and especially the preachers, and they're going to be the ones that are hanging around the vehicles that maybe even came from their same family or town, or community, right? And so they're the voices that we would hear that would say, "Oh, that's not the truth, because he doesn't say this, and he doesn't say this. He doesn't say you're saved by grace." And he's telling you that Paul is not to be trusted, what Paul says, unless you can match it up with something Jesus was teaching. And that's a logical way of thinking, in my opinion, because we know that Paul wasn't ever a disciple of Jesus. He might have saw him one time. There was some evidence I saw of that somewhere. Maybe not in the New Testament, but maybe in one of the other documents in like the Nag Hammadi library or the Dead Sea Scrolls. Anyway, but the evidence that he was going to come for a teaching time period where he's going to be talking to people again is big. There's a lot of evidence of that. And so the two witnesses are the ones that are depicted as coming to speak to people. And Jesus said that when he came back, he was going to speak plainly about and show us plainly the Father, and speak plainly and no more in parables. If he's not going to speak in parables and he's going to speak plainly, what does that mean? He's going to be speaking. He's going to have a vehicle. He's not going to be in his next level glorified body talking to us. because it has to be a test circumstance again. I mean, if he was doing miracles again, okay, those miracles would last, for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But as soon as he told you that you had to stop having sex, or even thinking about having sex, the miracle that he did to convince you that he was from the kingdom of God will kind of like, go to the back burner. And maybe I didn't see that the way I thought I saw it. Maybe that was a trick maybe he pulled on me, to get me to abandon my family. Even though that's what Jesus taught was necessary to start growing in his family, which were from outer space. It's all very logical. When you put T and Do's information, what they know and what they taught and what they did, because they backed up everything they said with what they did. They had the same behaviors as us. They emanated the behaviors that we needed to have, but they didn't tell us that I'm very gentle and so you need to become gentle. No, they didn't do anything like that. And listen to the tapes. You'll see how they did it. They're available. If someone is not willing to examine what they taught, then how can they decide that they weren't exactly who they said they were? Try to prove it wrong. That's what I suggest to anybody that thinks this is silly doctrine. And, if you find a scripture that you believe you can look at the scriptures and you can I'll address any verse in the New Testament, whether it's Paul or not, and give you my best shot at what all I think was being talked about in that regard, and how Jesus was speaking to two levels of people, of two people that had two kinds of people that had different capacities of comprehension, because we have to be prepared for this. My vehicle was prepared for it. The next level prepared my vehicle for it. And then I got further prepared for it for 19 years of being with them. So, it was like a lot of things got drummed into me, and I wanted them to be drummed into me, because Tiendo didn't do it in such a way that they were doing it. They were giving us the tools. We had to use the hammer and the nails to build the house. Right, they gave us the hammers and the nails. But we had to take the action of using them, the work for it. We had to work for it. That's what Doe said the meaning of worship was, really meant to be work for. It's interesting how it even sounds like a little bit like that, right? Like war, like W-O-R-K. A lot of times, the way that words evolve, continues to have, see, that becomes seen as, when you say worship, most people's first impression is that you're talking about something religious, right? And but it's when you say it as work for, that's speaking more plainly, more accurately. What more plainly is more accurately, because worship, what does that mean to some people? It means putting on a robe or something and kneeling down and putting your hands, like together like this or together like that, and being with other people and saying prayers together for our loved ones, and I'm not really knocking that, but it's an illusion. But the next level can work with those individuals to help them with their lessons, just the same as they can work with anybody. But there's going to be different lessons probably for some than others. And when we learn the lessons and we know that we're working with the next level, because we can feel it. I'm talking about anybody that, it doesn't matter what your religion is. You can be Buddhist, or you can think that you can basically be looking at science as your religion. I believe in the scientific process, which is also the same thing. It's actually, but and so you can look up to other people that came before you that demonstrated unusual, what humans would call genius or abilities compared to the other humans, or were willing to give their life for, like Martin Luther King Jr., for instance. He knew that people wanted to kill him before he went to that last meeting. And I suspect that might have been a student interfacing with that vehicle, or maybe even from the birth, given a soul, and then from birth, and then that individual might have then come back again after he was, because like Doe says, and the scripture says, for the elect the days are shortened, and that's for the ones that are elected by the next level to do tasks. Don't stay that long. They don't stay through the whole lifespan of their vehicle necessarily. I don't know if, and that might apply to everybody right now that works for T&O. Because, things are speeding up now, and it's probably going to be speeding up until, it may just stay speeded up, and we'll get used to the new norm of, there's wars happening all over the place. And there's more of this and more of that, and just more of everything. And that's okay, because that can help us, or it can hinder us. Because we're not forced to learn lessons. Well, we're forced to be faced with lessons. I mean, even death forces us to face overcoming fear of death. But then again, being fearful of death is a good thing, because then we can live longer and we can have more lesson opportunities, because we need the human vehicles in order to have lessons. Well, see, next level members, I don't know that they need to wear a certain type of clothing, which is a vehicle designed by the next level for them to occupy, a humanoid vehicle or whatever shape it's in and whatever its functions are. Um, uh, they still have lessons because growth continues indefinitely, according to Tiendo. But we also have the option to break away from the next level's vine, from their branch. And Tiendo demonstrated that over and over again, that we had a free will to leave, and they even helped us leave. And sometimes they took us back. Sometimes they told us that we had to go to a halfway situation. And then sometimes they invited them back. Well, they always invited them back. They invited me back too. So it becomes my free will to not go back, or it's not that I didn't go back because of any problems I had. Well, in a sense, I didn't go back for that reason because I wanted to continue giving into those things that I had to some degree overcome. Not to enough of a degree to pass my tests when they were given to me. But and those kids, Tiendo didn't give us tests like, okay, you need to, or go walk into that movie theater and watch that XXX movie and see if you can, they didn't do anything like that. I mean, we did see a movie sometimes, and sometimes there were some nudity, like of women from the waist up, and for a brief few seconds. And what Tiendo would tell us is that we need to, if we don't already see that as like looking at a human breast as like a grapefruit, the same kind of vibration you would get as looking at a grapefruit. Which is, you don't get any sensual. I mean, you might be hungry, so you might think, okay, I look forward to having that juicy grapefruit, but you don't get the same kind of buzz that you get from when people see something that body parts that their vehicle, generates testosterone because of, or whatever the females generate. Anyway, you don't get that same buzz from food. Well, maybe some people do. I don't know for sure, but in general speaking. And so, oh boy, I really am a rambler, aren't I? Well, I think there's, every once in a while there's something good in it. I think, I'm not gonna think negative, because you guys would have turned me off if I was not saying anything of value. But or either that, or you're just waiting for me to get back to the chat room. So I'll do that. Jay Pollock says I'm keeping an open mind about the next level. Yeah, I like that's like a thirsty, it's like a thirsty vessel. An open mind is a thirsty vessel. Cub Doggy says, I remember Doe talking about space aliens in his evacuation video. He said that the aliens that we think of, like the Greys, are just a depiction by the human kingdom. Are these aliens real or not? Just a depiction by the human kingdom? I had to go back and look at that. Did he use that exact word? If you're still here with us, I'll look to the bottom of this and see if I'll get back to you on that. Okay. And Kathy Southwestern says, Sawyer, that audio that you sent me via messenger, has that been transcribed yet? Oh, no, I don't think it has, and it needs to be. I would really like to see that transcribed. So if you want to take on that job, go for it. That'd be a great service to have. I mean, a service to being able to provide that to other people. What I do is I put it on my blog, and I put it in the packets. I haven't actually put them in the packets yet, but I will get to do that. I should do it sooner than later, but I think I have to go into a third packet then. And I mean, as long as it's available someplace, and I'll play it here again. I've played it actually here twice in live streams. So nobody's lacking it because I haven't provided the transcribed version. But no, I should still do that, though. I need to get that into those packets so that people have the ones that Nisha did. Jay Pollock says, a lot of those recorded audio segments are sadly hard to hear adequately. I wish we had access to all of them, too. Yes, I agree with you. I wish we did have access to all of them, and I wish we also could hear them better. But there's enough there that we're getting what Tiendo wanted from, a more in-depth understanding about what they are all about. And hearing T's voice is a big part of that. And not only that, but seeing how Tiendo related to each other and to students in the meeting formats. And that tells you a lot about the kind of people they were. They are, the vehicles. But they were in control of their vehicles. Doe even said that their vehicle, he talked about his vehicle, enjoyed being of service to Doe's mind and the next level. I understand that because my vehicle enjoys doing these live streams. For a long time, I kind of, didn't want to do them. I kind of dreaded them, maybe because I was facing myself with my weaknesses by doing them, because the thing is that, I'm not portraying myself as the teacher. I'm like a student that's facilitating what Tiendo taught and my experience with what they taught and the records and how that all might interface with the world things that are happening. So that's my package. I know you know that already, but I'm just saying it. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not worth anything to say that, but Okay, and then Cub Doggy says, I could make most of them out other than the background voices. Yeah, there's one that I tried to listen to was really hard to hear, and I would have had to struggle the whole time. And so I didn't actually re-listen to that one. Jay Pollock says, could be my hearing. I'll have to try again with headphones. Yeah. Cub Doggy says, I mean, I had to concentrate really closely to some of what was said. And Jay Pollock says, found an artist that used images from the exit interviews to create a 3D animated particle system, like they were transcending. Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting because that's what happened. Because those, I'd like to see that. Yeah, if you don't mind sending me a link to that, I'd really like to see that. That's my email address, sawyerhg@yahoo.com. So Cub Doggy says Lil Uzi Vert's song wasn't very next level like with the swear words and all, but could it be the next level tricking Lucy's kingdom into spreading the next level's information? Yeah, you know what? It's possible. It's possible. Because, I mean, swear words, and we didn't use them in the classroom, but I mean, um, was one of the Ten Commandments about, no, I think you weren't supposed to judge anybody or rail on somebody, but, well, TNO just didn't want us to use slang, especially slang that we use in the world. And so they just said all slang would be just, a cruder way of thinking because they were a more advanced way of thinking. And so they were more refined. And so, but they didn't want us to vibrate on the mammal aspects of what those words represent, and then the rebellious connotations that went with that also by using those four-letter words. And then they didn't say all that, but I believe that's what that's what I got from it in the package of the mind. They said some of that, but the intention, I think I got that okay. I could be wrong. I'm sure I could have said it better, but there's an extreme to trying to be a perfectionist too on a lot of things. I can use that as an excuse, right? But like they said, you need to learn to move quickly when you're doing tasks. But what Doe didn't say until another time was that T was the fastest person he knew at getting things done physically, but maybe mentally as well. And he said, but you wouldn't know it looking at T. It's not that she was moving her body faster. She was just she had no wasted motion, I think was his words. No wasted efforts, or motion. And so he didn't give us any examples that I can remember. Right, and so I just see. I was stimulated by all the events that happened in December, and then the finale with all those earthquakes and that annular eclipse, the Ring of Fire eclipse, the more rare eclipse happening over Asia, and right in the middle of the Ring of Fire. Actually, that's where it had its biggest effect, and then there were swarms of earthquakes with different sizes to each swarm. With a couple sixes spread out, through different places. So the four corners, actually, there were sixes. There were sixes in Alaska and sixes in Vancouver Island and sixes in Colombia and Argentina. But I don't think there are any sixes in Asia and Southeast Asia. And I don't think there were any earthquakes in the Middle East and hardly any in Europe at first. But now they continue. The earthquakes continue. And they're like, the ones in Asia, around Japan, all the way down to, there's a whole bunch of 4.9s. I mean, a lot of them. And the fives also. And then the ones in California were all like 3.9s, 3.9s, or maybe there were a number of 3.9s, I believe. And again, it's like a swarm of them. There were like 9 of them. I don't know if they were all 3.9s, but a number of them were. And then there was a swarm that was, maybe I said this last night too, but there was this swarm of earthquakes that happened in southern Oregon, and that swarm moved over 3 days, I think, 2 or 3 days. The swarm took place in a different patch. That was, as if that swarm was moving. I did talk about this last night, probably even those very same examples. But I don't, and that's happening at the same time as you had the announcement by Richard Blumenthal that there was a threat from outer space, in the space domain, to humans, and that no human, the American people don't know the facts at all about them, that threat, and them, because he's talked about them as saying they know what they're doing, is what he said. He said, and we know what they're doing, he said. And then he said, and they know that we know what we're doing. No. And they know that we know that what they are doing. So they know a lot of things. Whoever they is, when he's talking about the threat from space, he didn't say the word alien. So, somebody can take it and say, oh, he's just talking about Russia and China with their satellites. Yeah, but we know. We know what China, okay, we know what they're doing. And we know that, and they know what they're doing. And and they know that we know what they're doing. Why would that last thing apply? If well, I could, I guess. I can see how it could apply. Um, with the secret programs and all. But then when he said that the Americans don't know the facts and that they'd be very disturbed by the facts. I don't think disturbed was his word, but alerted, concerned, or it was like that kind of a vibration. But the Americans do know the facts of that different countries have different satellites, and that there's a potential threat and a cyber threat from other countries. Plenty of people know that. Know pretty much everything about a lot of the things that China is doing, and Chinese know a lot of the things that the United States is doing, and all the other countries know. Not only that, but they know the facts of what we're doing. So it's like, but even so, he can't tell anybody because it's classified, and those things aren't classified having to do with the satellites. Well, some of them are. I mean, they have classified codes and things. But he's talking about that he hopes that the American people will have the opportunity to learn the facts. And he talked about then that there should be a that he wanted the Space Force to have whistleblower protection, which is telling me that he wants whistleblowers to tell the facts about the space aliens from outer space presenting us with a problem and a war. Is there any accident that the war in Armageddon was both depicted as a war on Earth and as a war on Earth of a war for minds or souls, and a war for territory or dominance or oil or money, profits. So, I mean, this is all mind-blowing, that this is all, and it continues to blow my mind. So I'm going to play that, actually. If anybody's here, of the 9 individuals that are concurrent viewers, maybe all 9 of you haven't seen it yet. But it doesn't hurt to watch it again, in my opinion, or you can take a break if you haven't already taken a break. But let's see, if I go down there and I just got to click this. And I'm going to turn my mic off.
behalf of Chairman Enhoff, Senator Blumenthal, please.
Thank you, Senator Reid. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for your service. The most important facts for us and the American people to understand are the facts that haven't been said today. And the reason why they haven't been said is that they are largely classified. And the reason that's important is that the American people have no idea, really no idea, about the immensity of the threat in space. And I've made this comment in a classified setting, that I wish the American people could be present in this room, not this room, but the SCIF, because our adversaries know what they are doing. We know what they are doing. They know, we know what they are doing. But the American people have no idea. And so this discussion and debate will have very little interest in the American public. It's carried on in a level of, forgive me, bureaucratic language that most Americans would have trouble seeing an immediacy in their daily lives. But if they were privy to what we hear, and you know it much better than we do because you live it, I think they'd be pretty alarmed. This is not by way of criticism of you because you're living with the strictures of what is classified and not, but I think we have a real obligation to explain to the American people why space is a domain that matters, why the threats there are real and urgent, why they are growing in importance. So I think we all agree here that space is an important domain. Undersea warfare is an important domain, but we don't have a separate command for it. Cyber is an important domain, as my colleague and friend, the late John McCain, used to say. And so I found very persuasive, Secretary Wilson, what you said in July of 2017. I know it's been quoted to you before this morning, and others of you, the reasons for your opposition to that separate domain or the separate command for the space domain. But I would like to ask, in terms of the personnel issues that I think are of immediate concern to a lot of folks, this proposal would exempt Space Force civilian personnel from Title V rules and protections. It would create a new accepted service that is separate from the federal government competitive service or a senior executive service. It would create an alarming precedent, I think, that potentially could erode the merit-based civil service within the Pentagon and eliminate the rights of Space Force employees to participate in collective bargaining, for example. There's currently no civilian workforce that is statutorily exempt from collective bargaining rights. Can you tell me, Secretary Shanahan, why that is a part of your proposal?
The Title V that you were referencing was based on the discussion we were having earlier around integration with the NRO. That's the model that they employ there. And as we think about the talent management practices that we'll need in the future, we wanted a provision for that. Much like in your reference to the undersea domain, our approach to systems engineering is the same as the Navy's undertaken. So there are a lot of examples that we're trying to draw from that have been successful. That was the nature of that insertion.
Would there be protection for whistleblowers in the same way there is throughout the rest of the government?
The baseline that we're coming off of is the existing personnel system. This was to incorporate, the ability to integrate with the NRO. So I would, I'd have to go back, sir. I'd have to go back and confirm that for you. But I could,
if you would, that would be appreciated.
You bet.
Because based on this proposal, the Secretary of Defense could terminate any Space Force employee, quote, in the interests of the United States, end quote, and as drafted it says, notwithstanding any other law, which leads me to think that they would be exempted from a lot of other protections of law and could simply be dismissed whenever you determine it's in the interest of the United States.
Yeah, let me go back and confirm that that's not our interpretation.
My time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I think there are essentially, and I have a lot more, and I'm going to submit them for the record, a lot more questions than answers.
Turn my mic back on. So Kathy Southwestern, yes. No, the transcription hasn't been done that I'm aware of for the Black Hawk tapes. And there's 3 tapes actually that are from the Black Hawk meeting. And they're all, it'd be great to have them all. If you find a time on them, if any time to do it, that'd be great. So let's see. And then Jay Pollock says the Swallowed Up in Space 2015 video link. Okay. Well, I'll copy the chat room, so I'll have that, and I'll look for that. And Jay Pollock says, why can't he give some indication of what threat exists from space? Spy tech? See, that's my point, is that it's classified. And what's classified is all of the interactions that the government's had already and the military's had already with space aliens. And we know that they have an asteroid watching program, and we know that they have plans to try to shoot and blow up an asteroid, or even change its course before it gets too close to the Earth to where that could have a negative impact on the Earth. They're working on that technology to be able to do that, and they've landed on a number of asteroids. The English have, their space agency has landed on, it was called the Rosetta Project. They landed on an asteroid, and the U.S. government on July 4th of 2000 and something, early on 2000, shot a comet that was named, the name was Temple 1. You can look that up on, so the people that have been following all this and the UFO material, I think are more equipped to read behind the lines because they have more experience with it. To me, I can understand the question because I look at all the questions too. And that's why I was trying to explain that the way he said everything didn't make sense, that he was talking about a terrestrial problem, a terrestrial-based problem. He was talking about a problem with somebody in space. Now you could say, of course, that's people on the space station. But they're not having a problem with people on the space station that are multinational. And with technology, that people wanting to shoot each other down, I'm sure that's a problem they're also dealing with the Space Force. That they want to have the ability to, combat somebody that might be a threat to their satellites and their space telescopes. But the amount of money that's going into outer space projects is enormous. It's enormous. It's way beyond the budget because they're privately funding, like people like Elon Musk. He's not doing that out of the kindness of his heart. I mean, I'm not saying that it's direct funding. It's a billionaire, it's billionaires getting together and saying, here, we'll give you 100 million each. We'll invest in your company. See, that makes it very easy to make it look like a commercial enterprise when it's both a commercial enterprise and they want it to be a commercial enterprise, but they want it for what they can accomplish by dominating space. And come to think of it, Doe wondered if the Luciferians or the humans were gonna stage an invasion. And Elon Musk just sent up what was like 100 satellites, like they were all in one rocket. I guess they're like little drones, like on the picture I've got there, but probably, maybe not that much different from that. So what if they could run them in configurations? I've seen demonstrations of dozens of drones drawing pictures in the sky and them changing like fireworks, but better than fireworks, like drawing in the sky with lights on those and having different kinds of lights on them. So they could stage an invasion. Like some people think that that's what this is all about, that they're actually trying to create this fear so that they can have more money for whatever they want, and it's all an illusion. There are no space aliens, and there's no threat, which somebody to think that, sure, that's an optional way of thinking, but they don't have experience with everything that's come down since 1940s in regard to space aliens. And even before that, from the turn of the century of the 20th century, in 1897, with the first crash that happened with a body found in the United States in Texas, Aurora, Texas. I suspect that was John the Baptist, the soul that was, or equivalent, kind of task to the one whoever did the task of John the Baptist and Aaron. Because both of those individuals had a role in assisting Jesus and Moses. And we saw that whoever was Elisha might have been also, two students working together. Well, no, a student working with Doe in the vehicle called Elijah at the time. Okay, let me go back to the chat room, but I might bring this to a close. I know I didn't, have much new to say. But I could still put this up on the screen. No, I don't want that on there right now. How about this one? Yeah, this one shows the Ring of Fire with all the earthquakes. And the circles are the on the west coast are depicting the 6.0s, I think, or the swarms. Vancouver Island and down to California, northern and southern. And this other picture shows California, a little swarm that happened. And there were swarms within swarms there, or a couple together sometimes. Anyway, Kathy Southwestern, you use Word. Is that compatible with what you use? Well, you can always offload it to a text file. So there's no formatting, and then anybody can use it. I'll convert it into that. If you send me it in Word, that's fine. I'll convert it into a text file because I can always open it up. I think in Word, the online version of Word, and then copy and paste it. Or a lot of time with Word, usually you can save it in text format. And then you can just send it to me in an email. Either way, you can send it to me in an email. And I'll be sure to post it on my blog, and there'll be a link on the Sawyer Heaven's Gate page to the blog entry, and I'll put it in the packets that are sent to people. So that'd be a great service, Kathy Southwestern. Right, text format, which is no format. Or yes, via email. Yes, sure. SawyerHG@yahoo.com. It takes a lot of work to do the transcribing. I know I've done some of it. But it's definitely a fulfilling thing to do, and it really, helps us listen to the tapes. And that was a task that that Doe gave us to do. I don't know if I think we had that task. Yeah, T was in her vehicle when we had that task at first to transcribe the audios, but it never got done entirely. And if it did get done, I don't know what happened to those files. If Mark has them, that's another reason to. Well, I'm not going to get upset with him on something I don't know is the case. So, but we have what we need, guaranteed. Excuse me. Wow, I'm actually finishing early tonight. Let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, I guess that's about it for me right now. So I hope to see you again sometime soon, and I bid you good night.